few things I gotta say before people start to figure it out for themselves and wonder why I didn't bring it up in the first place. I wasn't even gonna talk about this, but in the limelight of my Grandpa Kenneth's tapes being released, it's not something I can avoid. From the fall of 1937 to the spring of 1969, a lot of people either went missing or were not accounted for. And this wasn't like Nathan Trint, the butcher of these United, where it was all over the country. Whereas in this case, the people who went missing were from all over the country. And the incident that they were all connected to was in one location. A small and quiet town in Bedford, Pennsylvania, used to be called Raystown after its founder, Robert McRae, in the 1750s. It resided between 3,000 to 4,000 people from the 1940s to the 1970s. Historically, where George Washington lived during the Whiskey Rebellion in the Espy House. Around the same time, my family had owned a little farm on the outskirts of Bedford. It was built during the Civil War by a man named Willard Murray. He owned roughly 640 acres of land, which is about 1 square mile. What was very gracious of him was that he would give people who were either freed or escaped from slavery decent paid work and rooms in the main house to sleep in. 70% of the profits he made from the farm, he gave to the people. The rest he had to pay for imports and food for everyone. He was a caring man. Until 1868, a group of Southerners came into town, found out about him, and they murdered everyone on the property. Some 45 people. Until my grandpa Seamus bought the farm in 1936. The thing about my family is that a new generation is born every 25 years. My Grandpa Kenneth in 1874, my Grandpa Seamus in 1899, Grandpa Patrick in 1924, my Grandpa Liam in 1949, my dad in 1974, and I was born in 1999. My dad recalls my Grandpa Patrick talking about living on the farm. Just play with the animals, and there was a large reign of land. You could just run about anywhere. My Grandpa Seamus and Grandma Gretchen fought a lot. Not physically, just verbally. When they did, it was during the night, and Grandpa Patrick would run over to the guest house to get away from it, or at least muffle down the noise. Now, the guest house was about 3 times smaller than the main house. It was a decent size just to fit one person. My Grandpa Patrick lived there until he graduated high school, and then he joined the Army in 1942. He didn't have to join the fighting itself. He was just a photographer. And after the war, he came back. He gave my Grandpa Seamus his Kodak 35 camera. It's sort of like a gift, I guess. He went out to find a place, work, and my soon-to-be Grandma Nancy. Grandpa Patrick didn't visit all that often, but when he did, everything seemed fine and normal. Until 1968.
Mr. O'Donovan, we had... It's just Seamus. No one called me Mr. Just Seamus. Okay. If you want Mr. O'Donovan, you get my father in here, but he's been dead for 7 years, so you ain't gonna get that. Right now, I want to know is why you and your folks are galloping about around my farm. So hurry it up and spit it out, boy.
Well, we had received an anonymous tip.
What's that?
When someone calls us and they withhold their identity.
Were they male or female?
I can't disclose that information.
Well, you have to disclose something, because unless you have a search warrant signed by Judge Snyder, You have no right to be on my property. And I have yet to seize this warrant. Is this your first time handling a search warrant?
No.
Well, you should know better. Show me the warrant first before you escort me off my land. I asked about that warrant many times and nobody said shit.
We had shown your wife the warrant, which in turn, she was kind enough to let us do it without incident.
Well, my wife is not the man of the house, now is she? She's not a man. She's a woman. Someone to raise the kids, cook meals, and keep the house looking nice until you people come and turn it upside down.
Okay, Seamus, I understand.
No, I don't think you do. She works hard, my wife. As hard as I do. More than you do.
All right. I want to talk to you about what we found.
Whatever you find, I wouldn't know anything about it. I run an honest farm. I make the crops that you put in your
I
dinner.
wasn't going to talk about your crops, Seamus. I was just going to mention your guest house and your barn.
What about them?
Grandpa Seamus was just your average farmer. Or at least he looked like it. Nowadays, he would be referred to as, very old-fashioned. But also referred to as something else.
We're wondering why there would be a tunnel underneath the wardrobe in the guest house that led to a certain stable in the barn. A stable that contains hay, a table, a hatchet, and a lot of blood.
The tunnel?
That's correct.
Well, I can't speak for the tunnel, but the stable is what I use to get rid of animals that my family and I could use for meals. Every farm does it. Whether that animal, say a pig, is getting up there in age and there's comes a time when you have to put her down. Otherwise that meat will go bad. You don't raise a piglet just to have the meat go bad.
Well, there was also a fair amount of blood on the pillow and bed in the guest house bedroom. You mind explaining that?
The air gets pretty dry at night. I lend my guest house to people who are just looking for a place to stay, or if they wanted to earn some money, they could, stay however long they wanted. I paid them, and they stay for free because they work for it. And then they would be on their way. No one ever really stayed longer than a week. When they did stay the night, the air was dry, and their nose would get all bloody and ruin the linen. I tried to clean them every chance I got.
Do you remember any of the people who stayed the night?
Hell no. I can only remember the most recent, the Kevin Tavern.
Kevin Tavern.
Yes. What?
Did he seem to be in a hurry or edgy?
No. He was calm, intrigued, and interested. But he didn't stay long. One day he asked me to use the phone, and next thing I knew, he was getting in a cab, and I never saw him after that.
You were completely unaware that he was wanted for a double murder in Johnstown.
I did not know that.
You don't have a television or radio?
Oh, we We had a radio, but it broke, and haven't had time to get a new one.
He wasn't all that tech savvy, for the most part. And there was a lot of technology that could have been useful to him in the crops business, but he refused to get any of the new stuff. And it's not like he didn't have enough money. He had plenty. But he still felt the need to go into town and put up flyers for people who weren't local and were trying to find a cheap place to stay. Kevin Tavern was a 23-year-old who was from Chambersburg, and he traveled across Pennsylvania into Johnstown. And at the time, he was on the run from authorities after murdering an elderly couple who, by witnesses say, offered him to stay with them. It was only after he stayed with my grandpa that the authorities had found out that Kevin Tavern had actually killed 5 people. And it was 3 in Chambersburg, 2 in Johnstown. And it was after he visited my grandpa that he went missing. And that didn't raise any suspicion. It was just a fact.
I would consider myself to be a gracious man. I lent that guest house to strangers out of the kindness of my heart. Bedford is a tourist attraction. When I give folks the option to stay at my guest house for a cheap price, they won't hesitate. $7 a night is way cheaper than what they're giving at the Jean Bonnet Tavern, I'll tell you that. If they didn't have any money and could stay a few days, they could work, stay for free. It wasn't hard work. Basically, they could just feed the animals, and that's what they did.
And how long exactly have you been lending out that guest house to people from out of town?
Mid 1930s. Stopped when my boy went to the war. Started doing it again around the time he came back and left again. I'd say I'd let that guest house for just having a sense that my boy was still home. He was gone for 3 years. Never wrote. Painful. Waiting for that vehicle with a star on it to show up at your house for a priest and an army man to come out with a letter. After the war ended, he came back for a few days, and he was gone again. He's back now, though, visiting with family, my grandkids, taking a liking to me. Do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Well, when you do, don't let them leave for too long. But don't hold on to them too long either. Too much of anything can turn them into something far different than you could imagine. Have restrictions.
Sometimes when Grandpa Patrick would play around the farm, Grandpa Seamus would shout out for him, wondering what he was up to. Grandpa Patrick was free to roam around most of the time. Otherwise, usually when they had a guest over, he wasn't allowed to play around the farm.
Now, how much longer are you guys gonna keep me here? I have animals I need feeding.
Just a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Well, make them quick.
Kevin Tavern,
Yeah, I told you about him.
did he say where he was going, or did you
I
see...
have no knowledge of where he might have gone.
No, okay. We are done here for the day, Seamus. However, we will continue to search the grounds of your property for any other signs that may lead us to conduct a more thorough investigation, if need be.
That's fine with me, as long as it doesn't impede with my job. Like I said, that tunnel, I have no idea why that's there. Keep in mind, my farm was built over 100 years ago. Wherever you find, most likely has no connection to me whatsoever.
We will definitely keep that in mind, but to be clear, we will still inquire you about what we find.
I'd say that's fair.
"48 hours, and the police didn't find anything else. On the property, they did find, however, some suspicious leads that should have warranted for an arrest, but they thought it wasn't enough to hold in court. I don't know if they didn't bother showing the judge what they found, if the judge was too close of a friend to my grandpa, or if the evidence was too much for the judge to accept and be in denial. That's the thing about people, is that when you're severely close to someone emotionally and something horrific comes to light about that person, you feel that you're the only person who knows them the most, that could not be the same individual that you've come to care about. You make yourself believe it can't be true, even when the evidence is concrete. I actually got a hold of Raymond Pressfield, a criminal psychologist who had evaluated the collected evidence and tape recordings and helped the police with making a profile of my grandpa.
We had what we thought would be enough to make an arrest. However, with every excuse that came with them was concrete. Investigations were not conducted as thoroughly as they should have been. Who we were dealing with was more intelligent than anticipated. I had to put together his profile, which included background checks such as mentality status, education, childhood, relationships with parents, offspring, and acquaintances. He was very well respected in the community, much for his compassion to help others who required shelter or employment. The citizens of Bedford didn't take too kindly to what they would call harassment and abusive nature that the police were enforcing onto him. People received their food from this man, and the police stalled production for some time. The community only saw this beloved saint being attacked on his farm. They were afraid of one thing. history repeating itself.
About 2 weeks went by. And this would be October of 1968. My grandma decided to go to the police because she started to put things together.
The date is October 18th, 1968. Please state your name for the record.
Gretchen O'Donovan.
Would you prefer Mrs. O'Donovan or...
Gretchen's just fine.
Okay. Gretchen, I need you to confirm that you're giving consent to have this conversation be recorded.
I consent, yes.
Grandma Gretchen was a very sweet and overly caring human being. Her and my grandpa met in 1923 at this little local shop in Erie, Pennsylvania. And they got married 4 months later and surprised everyone when my grandpa Patrick was born 6 months after they got married. So yeah. She was a very, very shy person. Kind of always, afraid of what people would say about her, especially after my grandpa Patrick was born. Very self-conscious, I would say. She told my grandpa Patrick that she didn't want to go to the police, but she felt like she had no choice. She knew something was up.
This is confidential.
Yes, ma'am. Only qualified law enforcement will be able to have access to this.
Okay.
You came in and told us you might have
I
some...
have a feeling that my husband is up to something. I never talk poorly about my husband. I love him dearly. But since you boys came on our farm, out of doubt, was forming, and I didn't want to believe it. The more I thought about it, the more things started to make sense.
Go on.
It was in 1937. Seamus goes away for nearly 2 days. I don't know where. I remember that because he always told me if he was going to be gone for that long. And that was the only time, and even since then, that he had not told me how long he would be away. He came home with another gentleman. He said his name was Mark. He looked very familiar, like a movie star. Very attractive, but I couldn't remember where I had seen him before. He was very popular, I know that. I thought maybe I had seen him in a newspaper. I tried to find some, but there were none in the house. I just went on with the rest of my day, paid no mind. Must have mistaken him for someone else. He stayed with us for a few weeks, slept in the guest house, paid his due with work, and helped around the house. One night, in the kitchen, him and Seamus had an argument. I can't remember what about. There was a lot of yelling. I had to send the children up to their rooms. The end of the quarrel, some few minutes later, and Seamus decided that Mark should leave in the morning. That night, Seamus couldn't sleep, and began his new hobby. Just something to do when he couldn't rest. He went out hunting in the night. He said it was more challenging that way. Afterwards, he would have a little bonfire. I thought Mark must have left during the night while Seamus was shooting off his gun because he wasn't there when I went to give him food for the road. I remember every night he went hunting. Whoever was staying at our guest house
I want you to know that I understand what you're thinking, Gretchen. And it is very brave that you're coming in here to tell us what you believe your husband might be up to. But unless there's physical evidence to support your claims, I'm sorry, but we just can't do anything. We searched your property for 2 days and did not find anything.
What about the blood on these pillows you found in the guest house?
There was a reasonable explanation, and we had experts to confirm.
Is there nothing I need to worry about?
For right now, no. However, if there is something that comes up, just give us a call, and we'll set up a meeting. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
She only went to the police one time. I don't know if it was because she was scared or if she really thought that she had nothing to worry about. The police did keep an eye on the property for anybody who would come stay. But nobody really came and nothing happened. Until Thanksgiving.
Airport Police Department. I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder, please? Is this an emergency? I cannot understand you. Please speak louder.
When the police arrived, Grandpa Seamus was in town, and they walked into the field where they saw a pair of boots sitting next to a 2-foot deep hole. And when they saw that, they noticed that a large chunk of the northeast corner of the field was just dirt. Now, normally, crops are the shape of a square or a rectangle. But my grandpa's crops looked like the outline of the state of Utah. They dug up that corner for 3 hours. Just shoe after heel after boot of all sizes. "500 square feet of footwear and burnt clothing."
This is not where I imagined spending my Thanksgiving, boy.
You know, that's exactly what I was thinking, Seamus. You better come clean with us right now. Where in the hell did all those shoes come from? And why are they buried in your crops?
I have no idea.
So what you want me to understand is this. You owned your farm for 30 years.
Now, hold on a goddamn minute. You don't be using that past tense bullshit. I still own it.
That's not the point I'm trying to make. 30 years. Those are your words.
That's correct.
And in those 3 decades, you never noticed burnt clothing and a shit ton of pair of shoes buried 2 feet beneath the surface of your crops.
That is correct. Do you know how deep you have to dig to plant any type of vegetation to create a reliable product?
No, I don't.
6 to 10 inches. Now you say that the apparel found in my crops were 2 feet underground. Those are your words.
That's right.
I have tried many times to produce vegetables on that northeast corner, but to no avail. The soil has to be clear underneath that 6 to 10 inches where I plant the seed. Otherwise, that area is useless. Like I said before, that farm is over 100 years old. Anything you find most likely, if not definitely, has nothing to do with me. I have been upfront with you this entire time. Now you have to believe me when I say that I have no idea how those clothes ended up there in the first place. Because I don't. You gotta stop looking at me like I even have any knowledge of how they got there. Because looking at me in the way that you are, it doesn't sit right with me, boy. It's a very accusing expression. I don't like it one bit. Next time, I'm calling my lawyer. Do you understand?
We had to figure what kind of mindset this particular individual had in order to try and come up with a plan to bring that mentality to light. The term serial killer wasn't a part of any language at the time, not until a 1981 Times report article which discussed about Wayne Williams, a man who killed 31 children between 1979 and 1981. The extraordinary concept behind a serial killer is that since they continue to kill and kill, they mustn't have any remorse from what they do. At least, a majority of them do not. Paul Michael Stephanie, nicknamed the weepy-voiced killer due to the phone calls he had made to the police after he committed those murders, would cry with a high-pitched tone. So, in a way, some can be remorseful. It's just trying to establish whether they actually are or not. Had Stephanie not called the police, he may as well have killed again. In this instance, with the straggler killer and the magnitude of his crimes, without a doubt, he lacked remorse for his victims and presumably may have enjoyed it. So, trying to get any emotion out of him was going to be very difficult, and it was difficult. Without emotion, there's no sense of guilt, and without a sense of guilt, there is no confession. And without confession, the chances of getting a conviction are insignificant.
The police believed they had proof that my grandpa was this monster. But with every evidence that was thrown their way, it was dismissed as circumstantial. They basically had 3 options at this point. Drop the case, wiretap the entire farm to see if he says anything that might incriminate him, or catch him in the act.
It was an excruciating task to acquire permission for wiretaps. The commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police, Frank McKenna, the police chief of Bedford, and I met with Mayor Eldon Studebaker and discussed the legality and reasons as to why such an invasive act was required. It took about 4 hours of debating, and the mayor gave us the go-ahead. We waited for the right moment for both persons residing in the farm to vacate the premises and place the wires in every room. The terrible thing about this operation is that we could not use a bug, which is when a wire is placed and you are able to hear what is going on in real time. It usually works through radio waves, and we could not use this tactic because we would easily be spotted outside the driveway and the range would be too distant, therefore the audio on the receiving end would be too weak. So we had to use voice-activated recorders. Positives are they work efficiently. Negatives are that it only records about 30 to 45 minutes. So we had to go in and replace the tapes. The best times to do this was Sunday mornings. We were able to accomplish placing the wires on the premises on December 8th, 1968.
Beautiful out there, Don. Holy shit, we're beautiful.
So, what's it called?
What about?
Christmas. You can't make it this year. Seamus, it's all right. The two of you are just going to get into it. Now, put that phone down. Seamus.
Hello?
Hi, Nancy. It's Seamus.
Oh, hi! How are you and Gretchen doing?
We're doing just fine. Bag's there with you.
Seamus, please.
Give me just a moment.
A bit busy right now, Dad. Now, what's this I hear about you not making it to Christmas? Dad. You can't keep doing this, boy. Do you have any idea how heartbreaking it is to see the woman who gave you life only to be able to see you once a month? You know what that's like, boy? It's like you're back in the war all over again. We won't have that, you hear? You haven't visited in 2 months now. You're not going to make it 3. Is that clear? The next words out of your mouth better be yes, sir.
Liam and I are going to Vietnam, Dad.
No, you are not. You understand me? No way in hell. Nearly shredded your mother's soul the first time. Broke her fucking spirit when you came back and left again. A woman like her cannot deal with this kind of bullshit, son. No fucking way you're taking our only grandson either. I'm going to hear you say, see you next Christmas. You're not going there, you hear me?
It's not our choice, and it's not yours either. Goodbye.
What's on that? What was that? Seamus?
Very little happened the next few weeks. New Year's had come and gone with no sign of any suspicious activity. The police commissioner was growing impatient, quite vigorously, actually, believing at this point that we were chasing a fallacious goose. If my memory serves, I am quoting that precisely. Several hundred hours of audio was captured, however, nothing pointed towards the monstrous fiend that we were led to believe he was. Just an ordinary mediocrity who fed animals and provided for the community. If there was a perfect crime, he knew how to do it.
From December of 1968 to early May of 1969, they had wiretaps on the farm. My grandma left out this vital detail that would have helped the police immensely. And it was that my grandpa didn't let people stay in the guest house during the winter. Specifically from December to May. It was too cold, and it didn't have a fireplace or a furnace. It used to be a chicken coop before he had it renovated. And plus, there isn't much work to be done during the winter except feeding the animals and preparing for taxes.
At this point, we had exhausted our resources and were on the brink of closing the case entirely. Until one officer, a 24-year-old Corporal Harrison Gallantry, who undeniably lived up to his name, suggested using a mole, someone who infiltrates information via joining a group and gaining their trust by any means necessary. If no one else will volunteer, then I will do it. That's what he said. It was quiet for a minute. Not in fear of the lack of knowledge we had for what he could be walking into, but from the fact that he wasn't afraid of that.
On April 3rd, my grandpa put up flyers in town, and the police got ready.
We had waited a day or so before getting Gallantry to even approach the flyer. We made him appear as if he was just traveling through town with luggage, a New York Yankees t-shirt by his choice, some raggedy clothes, etc. Notably, Corporal Gallantry was indeed from out of state. He was born and raised in New York. His family moved out into the country in 1966, so life would be a bit simpler. He was a kind chap, a bit stubborn, but when it came to making a career in becoming a policeman, he was serious and very passionate. In this particular case, he was willing to risk his life. We had bugged the telephone where the conversation would take place, as well as putting a wire on Gallantry along with replacements in his bag. And then the operation began.
Joe? Hi, is this Mr. O'Donovan? Just Seamus, but yes. Hi, my name's Fred, and I saw your flyer. Figured I could give you a call, and is your guest house still available? Yes, it is. You're from the New York area, I take it? Yes, I am. I've had a few New Yorkers come and go over the years. Just a few questions I gotta ask you if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Are you alone, or is someone traveling with you?
Oh, I'm alone.
Okay. Are you willing to work for a little bit extra money, or just plan on staying?
Yeah, well, I'll work if you need. That's no issue.
Well, that's good to hear. And last question: does anyone else know where you are, in case you need to call them?
Well, they know I'm on vacation. I said I was just gonna roam around and see the country, you know.
Well, if you ever need to call anyone, you can use my phone. Just ask first.
Oh, duly noted.
All right. Where are you in town?
I'm near Huntington Avenue and Pitt Street.
Oh, okay. You see that stone house with the red door?
Yeah.
All right, I'll meet you there and pick you up in about 20 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right.
It took him about an hour before arriving at the SB house. He drove a red 1956 Chevy Napco 4x4. Very distinct vehicle considering no one else in town drove that particular model. We had waited until dusk to approach the driveway entrance of the farm, but not enter it. We couldn't risk being noticed, especially now. At the time, I hadn't the slightest idea as to why I was there. I was just a criminal psychologist. They needed me there in case they had any questions. That was it. They couldn't wait to telephone me because it would have been a waste of time. Better to have me there than not. We were there for nearly 2 weeks. April 16th came around, which was the worst time because there was a new moon. Complete darkness. The only things that we could see were the glowworms flying around.
Even with binoculars, nothing. But then, Pressfield and the men he was with
Saw a light, which was a lantern coming from inside the guest house. We were wondering what Gallantry was doing or what he was planning. However, the light was only on for no more than 10 seconds. And then nothing. For about 45 minutes.
suddenly they see this whoosh of a flame coming from the northeast corner behind the barn.
We were roughly 200 yards away. The crops were just peeking out of the soil, and once that flame erupted, we could see a little bit more than before. There were 10 of us crammed into this 4x4 that was only made to hold 8. We were armed and prepared. The driver floored the accelerator and drove straight for the flame, through the dirt, through the crops.
It took them maybe 10 seconds to get to my grandpa.
Our driver must have been going at least 64 kilometers an hour, and he did not stop. We came to a halt after he rammed into what the flames were coming from, and there was a loud metallic clang, and sparks flew everywhere. When we got out of the vehicle, Mr. O'Donovan was just standing there, motionless, but shocked.
He had lit the fire in a drum, this tall, black, which I assume used to have color, metal drum.
The officers raised their torches and firearms, and he complied. We got him in handcuffs and sat him in the back of the vehicle. One of the officers ran to the guest house to wake Corporal Gallantry. He was in there for a few minutes. Or at least, that's what it felt like. He then stood in the doorway and waved for us to come to him. I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable talking about this part.
Corporal Gallantry was nowhere to be seen. His pillow was covered in blood. There were no bed sheets. And there was a camera on the bedside table. Specifically, the Kodak 35 camera that was a gift to my Grandpa Seamus from my Grandpa Patrick after he returned from World War II. After they searched the guest house, they went back to the car to question my grandpa, and he just stayed quiet, taking advantage of his right to remain silent. They searched the drum. The fire was put out for the most part. And they found pieces of burnt clothing that were covered in blood, one of which was a t-shirt that had a New York Yankees logo on it.
It was revealed later on that the drum was never searched. In the ashes, duly note, the drum must have been almost full, were several pieces of clothing that had no business being in that drum 30 years prior to Mr. O'Donovan's purchase of the land. These were articles of clothing that were very modern.
Grandma Gretchen was asleep while all of this was happening. She was awoken by an officer later in the morning and informed her of the situation. And my grandpa was taken to the station.
How's it going there, Seamus? You can't lie your way out of this one. You know that, right? You want to call a lawyer? Be my guest. The best thing he'll do is try to get you a life sentence. What else is there that you're not telling us?
After he was sent to the station, we conducted a more thorough investigation of the premises. We found a wiretap in one of the pillowcases on the guest house. None of us had recalled placing one there. We had later discovered that it was the wire that we had placed on Corporal Gallantry. He hid it in case something happened to him. Along with that, we had the Kodak 35 camera beside the bed. It had film in it. Assuming there was more film around, we searched the main house and found nothing. We searched the barn and found nothing. We searched the guest house and found nothing. Someone decided to look in the tunnel underneath the guest house which led to the barn. They found nothing in the tunnel. However, as they climbed back up the ladder, there was this open space near the top underneath the floorboards. There was a small box. Brought it back up and we opened it. There were only 6 canisters of Kodak film inside. We took those, along with a wire, and camera back to the station and retrieved anything we could. What we found was... I have never been able to invent the word to describe it.
It took them a few days to process all of the photos due to the quantity and the wire that they found in the pillowcase.
Who's there?
Why'd you do it, Seamus? We want to know. What did you do to all those people? We have all your precious little photos. Yeah, we found them. They're being processed as we speak. You know, our psychologist has deemed it necessary to diagnose you as a sociopath.
Now, I know the difference between right and wrong.
Really? You whistling "I'm in heaven" as you drag a corpse across the floor and dumping them down a pit isn't considered being a sociopath? I would love to hear your opinion on the definition of a sociopath, which apparently differs from a well-educated and certified criminal psychologist.
People like your superiors sent my son to war twice, and my only grandson for the first time, against their well-being. This time to a war we have no business of being a part of. Civilization has gone to shit with all these fucking freeloading tramps going wherever they want, when they feel like it, taking no part in the community that they were a part of, not making anything of themselves. People need to learn that they have a place in this world, and that place is to be doing their part in the work. Instead, they're just going about mooching off people like me. needed anywhere. I didn't kill every single person that came my way. Just most of them. And don't call me a sociopath when there are people out there who just take what they want without repercussions. No sense of duty, and don't give a shit about whether or not you're valuable, but as long as you're expendable.
That's why you did it?
Damn straight.
Why did you make that pig noise?
Well, I knew he was one of you.
How?
You think I didn't know about all those wires you put all over the damn place? Ones that would even stick up out of the lampshades? I knew once I put the fire up, you folks would get on that.
How did you do it?
Now, normally it was during the night. Best time to do it. Walked over to the guest house, and I know the land pretty well, so I didn't need a light. I'd sneak up on them while they were sleeping. Take out a pistol, which was equipped with a silencer.
What kind of pistol?
HDM 22LR.
Who's there?
After I put a bullet through the back of their head, at some point in time, I can't remember, I decided to take pictures of it. Kind of like those old photos of relatives next to their dead loved ones. I'd cover its head with the bed sheets and try not to get as much blood on the floor. It's an old floor as it is. Don't need some unwanted prick's blood on it. Plus, shit's hard to clean up. It's a fucking hassle. I get the dresser out of the way, so I can get the corpse off the floor and haul it down the tunnel. Had a wheelbarrow to help carry it down. Once I got down to the end, I attached the body to a pulley system and pulled it right up to a trap door that enters to that stable in the barn. I was always thirsty by the time I got the corpse on the table. I would take a little break and drink whatever water was around. Normally it was the horse's water. I would take off its clothes, shoes, jewelry, whatever they had on them. And I would cut them up with a hatchet or a saw, whichever I was in the mood for. And little by little, I fed it to the pigs. Took the clothes and such and burned them in the drum I kept out back. Whatever was left that was big, I buried it with the shoes. How you people managed to get on my trail is a mystery.
I told you. An anonymous tip.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, how would they come on right out and reveal themselves instead of being such a fucking coward? That's how all this started, isn't it?
Fortunately, Seamus, in my opinion.
see their face.
I can ask them if they want to speak to you, but that's up to them. Do you understand? Good. No words? Remember when I came to visit you and Mom sometimes? You always had someone else working the farm. I thought that was pretty nice, you know? Saw quite a few of them. Even after I left, I still saw them. On missing persons flyers. I was never going to Vietnam. Liam did, though. He got shot in the leg, came back home. No, I was too busy trying to catch this murdering piece of shit I called Dad. Who else did you think was developing the photos they found? How long have you been doing this? For a while, I assume. Considering how thorough you are. They dug up 474 pairs of shoes. That's 237 people. Not counting the cop you just killed.
Oh, you can do math now.
Holy shit, it speaks.
Don't you talk to me that way, boy. I'm still your father.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. You best remember that.
I'm gonna leave you with this the best way I know how. When you die, I won't care. See you on Christmas.
We had received much criticism in multiple ways over the years on how we handled the situation, why we couldn't find evidence quicker, and why we didn't immediately arrest and charge him. But most people don't understand circumstantial evidence, and coincidence is never enough. They are not concrete. They will never be concrete. We received criticism for abusing a poor old farmer who provided for the community. We received criticism for not arresting him sooner. We received criticism for letting a young man willingly walk into the lion's den and being killed in the process. We did everything we could with the technology we had at the time. Corporal Harrison Gallantry gave his life to save countless others. That was his personal objective. He knew the risk. But that doesn't mean we didn't try to accomplish this without casualties. Regrettably, victory never prevails unless it comes with a price.
Now, there have been rumors, more like theories, on the correlation between Nathaniel Marcar Trint's escape from prison and the time my grandpa started killing. Now, it is a coincidence, like how Grandma Gretchen said that my grandpa had left for a few days and didn't tell her where. And in that time, Trint escaped prison. How? Possibly my grandpa disguised himself as a security guard and escorted him out of the jail. Or my grandpa found out what cell Trint was in, dug underground to that cell, and broke him out. The specifics of the escape have never been made public. And Grandpa Seamus came home with a man who my grandma recognized him from somewhere and also went by the name of Mark. Nathaniel Marcar Trint. Mark. How nobody knows where Trint went. He's possibly my grandpa's first victim. Again, theories and rumors. But either way, I'm related to the straggler killer. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I had suggested all of this to the producers and told them that this would be a better documentary for the guys showing up tomorrow. But the producers argued that The Butcher of These United was a better story due to the time frame, the uniqueness, and how my great-great-great-grandpa Kenneth had a face-to-face conversation with him. This is where the farm was. After my grandpa was executed, my grandma sold all of the animals. Then she sold the property to the state and had everything demolished. The main house used to be over there, and the barn was over there, and the guest house was right over there. And where there was where all the shoes were found. It's really it's really surreal.